What is the U.S. national debt? The U.S. national debt consists of money borrowed by the federal government to cover budget deficits when spending exceeds revenue. It is made up of publicly held debt owed to investors, foreign governments, and institutions. Intragovernmental debt owed to government programs like Social Security and Medicare. Why is the debt so high? Over the years, U.S. debt has increased due to large government spending on military, healthcare, social programs, and infrastructure. Tax cuts reducing government revenue. Economic crises, such as COVID-19, requiring stimulus spending. Rising interest payments on existing debt. Why does the U.S. keep borrowing? The U.S. issues treasury bonds and securities to raise funds, which investors, including foreign governments, buy. Investors see U.S. debt as a safe investment, so demand for U.S. bonds remains high. The government relies on borrowing because cutting spending or raising taxes is politically difficult. Should we be concerned? Concerns. Higher debt means higher interest payments, which could strain future government budgets. If debt grows too fast, investors may lose confidence, leading to economic instability. Overuse of debt can contribute to inflation and devaluation of the US dollar. Why it's manageable, for now. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, meaning other countries still trust and use it. As long as economic growth continues and interest rates remain manageable, the US can sustain its debt. The US national debt reaching $34 to $36 trillion in 2024 is a significant economic issue, but it is not an immediate crisis. Long-term fiscal management is crucial to avoid economic instability, higher inflation, or loss of confidence in the US financial system. As of 2024, the U.S. national debt is around $34 to $36 trillion officially. The $230 trillion figure is likely an estimate of unfunded liabilities, including future obligations such as Social Security, Medicare, and other government programs. Some economists calculate the total U.S. financial obligations in this way, which greatly exceeds the official debt. This implies that the true financial burden of the U.S. government is much higher than what is officially reported. The United States is bankrupt. The term bankrupt suggests that the U.S. government cannot meet its financial obligations. However, unlike individuals or companies, a sovereign country like the U.S. cannot technically go bankrupt as long as it can print its own currency. The concern here is that with such a massive debt burden, the U.S. government might struggle to pay back its obligations without causing economic instability or inflation. The U.S. dollar may become a counterfeit in the future. This suggests that the U.S. dollar may lose its value due to excessive money printing. If the U.S. continues borrowing and printing money to cover debts, it could lead to inflation or hyperinflation, reducing the purchasing power of the dollar. In extreme cases, people may start seeing the US dollar as worthless or counterfeit money, similar to how hyperinflation led to the collapse of currencies in countries like Zimbabwe or Venezuela. Is this a real threat? While US debt is a concern, the US dollar remains the world's dominant reserve currency, meaning countries and investors still trust it. Hyperinflation is unlikely in the near future, but continued excessive debt and deficit spending could lead to long-term declining dollar value, higher inflation, or loss of global confidence in the U.S. financial system. The Federal Reserve and U.S. government manage monetary policies to prevent sudden financial collapse, but growing debt could create challenges in the long run. What do Chinese say? Chinese say that people who hold a large amount of US dollars, you have to consider what to do. In the recent period, cryptocurrencies have experienced a sharp drop compared to Bitcoin, falling from a high of $99,000 all the way to a low of $82,256. Indeed, many investors who bought at high prices have suffered heavy losses. However, the decline in Bitcoin prices has also given some investors who are bearish on the United States an opportunity to buy at low prices. A large number of these US dollars have been exchanged for Bitcoin. The author of the financial bestseller Rich Dad Poor Dad is called Robert. On the 27th, he posted a tweet on his social account, saying that he would continue to buy during the period of Bitcoin's plunge. And his theory is very simple, that is, the US dollar. The United States has gone bankrupt. The US dollar has become counterfeit money, and the economy and the US dollar will continue to collapse in the future. The tweet by Davo Robert revealed a terrible reality, that is, the actual debt of the United States is not 36 trillion. Instead, it has exceeded 230 trillion. He predicted that when other countries, such as Japan, stop buying US debt, the US dollar will collapse. What is the concept of 230 trillion US dollars in debt? This is equivalent to 10 times the GDP of the United States in 2023-24 fiscal years, and 47 times the government revenue in this fiscal year. For the US government, even if it does not spend a penny in the future, these debts will take 47 years to pay off. Let's look at this set of data. Can you still believe that the US government can pay off their debts? Do you still believe that Trump's drastic reforms at the domestic level can save the dying United States? Then, according to Robert's statement, 36 trillion US dollars is just an on-balance sheet debt of the US government, and the larger off-balance sheet debt has not been noticed at all. These off-balance sheet debts mainly refer to the social welfare plans of the United States. In fact, Robert is not the first expert to hold this view. The legendary American investor Stanley once assisted Soros in successfully attacking the British pound. Gluckenmiller pointed out this hidden truth as early as 2 years ago. He said that the debt deficit of the US federal government is bankrupting future generations. Compared with the visible figures of the US national debt, out-of-control welfare is the source of the largest debt of the United States. If the welfare expenditure of the US government in the future is taken into account, the actual debt of the United States is 200 trillion US dollars. A data from the Congressional Budget Office of the United States shows that by 2040, the US government's expenditure on welfare for the elderly will reach 100% of federal tax revenue. In other words, by 2040, the US government's tax revenue will be used entirely to support the elderly in this society. They will only be able to rely on continuing to issue bonds to fill the huge fiscal deficit. This is the real crisis of the United States, and it is also a taboo area that Trump dare not touch. If Trump really wants to completely get the United States out of the crisis, or greatly delay the arrival of the moment of death, then what he should do is not to say that the reforms of cutting government spending and other small reforms to fundamentally solve the problem. But what must be done is to reduce the benefits enjoyed by all Americans. So it is obvious. No American president in history has dared to touch this matter, and Trump is no exception. Therefore, under American electoral politics, politicians have become accustomed to winning votes with the promise of higher welfare, which is a wonderful thing that has not been wasted. If one party proposes to cut welfare spending, they will be abandoned by Americans who are accustomed to high welfare benefits, and will be politically sentenced to death.